All right. So I guess before we kick off with the conversation with Alvin, which I know everyone's waiting for, just a little bit about us and about Beer Asia. So my name's Ollie. I'm the founder of Beer Asia. We're basically a digital platform. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're kind of, a digital platform, online magazine, Facebook page, community. We don't really pin ourselves down exactly what we are. We're kind of like essentially this digital network kind of promoting craft beer culture around Asia Pacific. And, our mission is to really hero the best bars, breweries, brewers, publicans, everyone doing cool stuff in the craft scene, all the way from Palestine to the Philippines, from North Korea to New Zealand. We've launched a session, Beer Asia Live, partly because everyone's on lockdown and keen for some interesting conversations. We also thought it was a good time to really kind of hero people like Alvin and like our previous interviewees who are doing really cool stuff in the craft to build the craft beer community in various countries around the region. And so this is our fourth session. It's really exciting to have to be talking with Alvin Today. So for those of you who don't know who Alvin is, obviously Alvin will be talking about his journey and his experience. But Alvin's actually one of the co-founders and kind of like the driving force behind Taps Beer Bar, which is one of I think it was the first major craft beer. It was the first craft beer only.
Yeah, you can say that. Yes. I would like to say that, but some people might disagree. Some of our family members might disagree as well. But you know what? We'll take the credit.
Fair enough. No, and Taps. Look, for those of you guys who don't know, Taps is really one of the shining lights, the torchbearers of craft beer in Kuala Lumpur and beyond, actually in Penang as well. I know you guys are up in Penang now too. And funny thing was, from a personal anecdote, I actually first really got back into craft beer, having grown up in New Zealand and lived in Malaysia and Singapore for a long time. I really got back into craft beer actually through Taps, by going to Taps in Changka.
Really?
Yeah, no, really. That's
wow.
Totally.
It's kind of weird to say.
Back in end of 2013, I remember a friend of mine said, "Let's go to a craft beer bar," and I said, "There are craft beer bars in KL." I didn't even know that, and So for me, it's really cool to be talking with you as well, partly because it's Taps. Because
it's normal people. We're just normal people.
No, but I think as well as a New Zealander, like we didn't really consider craft beer to be craft beer. Like it's just beer.
Yeah, it's just beer.
And like there's so much variation. Whereas now, obviously, craft beer is its own thing. And the other thing that Alvin is that you might not know, and we'll talk about today as well, is Alvin's actually an importer, distributor. By the way, that barking noise is my dog. He may bark at various points. There you go. You can hear him now. He's
at least you got someone watching.
yeah. Got one attendee. Alvin's actually an importer and distributor of beer into Malaysia. And the other thing that's really cool that Alvin's done recently, or that Taps has done, is actually created their own beers, which is really, really exciting. We'll be talking a bit about that further down. But Alvin, welcome to Beer Asia Live.
Thank you, man. Thank you for the very introductive intro. I think we've covered everything. Thank you very much.
Yeah, guys. All right, we're finished. We're wrapped up.
Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? Everybody's got a drink in hand? Everybody? I've got a beer in here, okay? It's not coffee, just beer. Just to keep it cold for the whole duration of this conversation I'm going to have with Ollie.
What are you drinking, Alvin?
I'm drinking the lager that we made out over in Melbourne with Temple Brewing Company, the Life's a Peach lager. It's quite hot today, so 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Malaysia time, a nice lager will be perfect.
So is it kind of like a peach-infused lager?
No, it actually just somehow started giving out peach aroma at the start, a very light, very subtle peach aroma, but in the sweetness at the back, it's not like a mango or apricot or a malty sweetness. There's this fruity sweetness that we sort of pinpointed it maybe a bit closer to the peach kind of aftertaste, but a very subtle one, but still very, very drinkable, obviously.
I think it's super cool that you guys made your own beer. And I mean, for those of you who don't know, you actually can't brew in Malaysia unless you're one of the big boys, Heineken, Carlsberg, or there's a third smaller brewery. But it was super cool that you guys made those two beers, and I'm sure there's more exciting stuff coming that way. But Alvin, let's start by talking about. I'd love to ask you to talk a bit about share your personal journey. How would you say you got into the world of beer?
To begin with, I started the beer journey, the craft beer journey, with a lot more hair than this. Beer doesn't make you lose hair. Importing does. Right? So, and running a bar, one, right? I don't know how many people know this, but a really quick background to. We as a family, me, my sisters, my cousins, we go out drinking a lot, or we used to go out drinking a lot, and now not so much. But we went back in the day before we opened the bar, and then one day, with all drunk nights and alcohol infused decisions made, we decided, why are we spending money at other people's bars? And it was downhill from there on. But so we said, yeah, let's open up a bar. Let's try to find what makes people tick, what we would like to do, in terms of being able to go there every day. And I love to come here because this is what I've always wanted in a bar. But we never knew what was the differential factor between opening a bar and comparing us to the next bar down the road. So we played with some ideas back and forth, different names, different concepts, because at that point it was really just the big boys, the big commercial beers in the market. So there was no differential in the drinks. So apart from that, we only have a concept that doesn't have to be beer related, because there are only 4 beers in Malaysia, right? So we had to try to do a food concept, interior decorated kind of concept. One of it was actually a name called Gamba, right? So no chewing gums, not a chewing gum bar, but a bar which when you come in, we take photos of you and we stick it up on the wall, and you come in, if you spot your picture, pull down your picture, you get 10%, 15% off.
Gamba means to photograph in Malay,
Gamba,
right?
Yes. So that now anybody's listening, you can do that in your bar. Just take that idea, take the photograph, take people's photograph, hang it on the wall. The customers come back, oh, that's my photo, take it down, get a free beer, whatever it is, right? So, but then after that, my cousins from Melbourne came back, and one of them is a lawyer, one of them is an engineer, and they say, let's open a bar too. They say, oh, sure, let's do it together. Done. So we looked for a concept until one fine night. My 2 cousins have been living in Melbourne for quite a while. And this was back in 9 years ago. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, Malaysian time, I received a call from my cousins, right? And you would expect a 3 o'clock call in the morning, in the middle of the night, would be an emergency. So I picked it up, and these 3 fellas on the phone, they say, we have an idea. We need to talk about it right now. I said, guys, is it an emergency? No. Okay, let's all talk about it tomorrow, right? So next day, we met up, and they said, okay, let's open a craft beer bar. I was like, what is a craft beer? I'll be honest with you, what is a craft beer, right? Because prior to that, if I'm in Melbourne, I'll just drink different beers. It just doesn't hit you as a craft beer, a microbrewery, a nano brewery or whatever it is, right? So back and forth, and then they flew back to Melbourne, and we and Gail trying to plan look for a location and that kind of stuff. And my cousin from Melbourne sent a few beers back. He said, oh, make sure it's kept cool, It arrived to me at about 7 o'clock in the evening, and I had 2 bottles of craft beer. One was a Mornington Peninsula Brown Ale, and one was a wonderful brewery called Kuinda, which is now defunct in Melbourne, but they did a black IPA with Nelson Sauvin hops, right? So I had 2 dark beers in my hands. And he said, oh, you must make sure it's cold. If not, you'll turn bad. You lose its flavor, lose its character. So here I am at home with 2 bottles of beer. chilled, and I opened one up and drank half of it. I said, oh wow, this is great. I opened the other half, the other bottle, I drank half. I said, even better, the black IPA. So, and then I said, hey, hang on a second, maybe I should let some people try these beers. And I only had half a bottle left each. I called up my friends and said, hey, you guys, I need you all to try something. So I brought it out to them. So as I was driving to the bar to meet them, I actually held up the beer in front of the air conditioning of the car just to keep it chilled, right? Because I didn't know how volatile this was, or how robust it can be, right? So I was driving in my hand. I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, right? So got it, went to the bar, sat down, let them try it, and they said, great, awesome, very nice. But they never knew, at that point, they didn't know what the price was yet. So at that point, everything that tastes good is good, right? And that's how it all started. And 8 months later, the bar was opened in Changkat.
And so when you first started up, it's a cool story, right? Because I think I think for a lot of people, the story about breaking into craft beer or breaking into the world of beer is always it's always interesting. Everyone comes at it from a different angle. But once you guys plowed into doing it, launching in Changkat, I mean, what were those first kind of 6 months like running a business? And maybe you can tell everyone what Changkat's like. What Changkat even is, where is it, and the magic of the place.
Okay, so Changkat, so of course budget was low, but we needed to go to a heavy drinking area, right? So Changkat was basically the tourist spot of Kuala Lumpur. It still is in some ways, and most of the time it is. And what happened was we didn't get a shop on the main street of Changkat because left and right music is just going off. It's just busy. It's great. It's busy, it's good, but it's crazy busy, and it's just a different kind of crowd. And then so we moved away, we walked a bit down, and we found this place down there where we are currently now, 9 years down the road. And we thought, oh, let's find out about this place. And then we found, and then we got a rental, and then, oh, it's a lot cheaper than Changkat, but it's about 200 meters down from the main street. So I thought, perfect. So doors open, nobody, friends came, friends loved the beer, but after 3-4 months of supporting us, they say, hey, we can't do this 3 nights a week, man, because we don't have that money to spend, right? So we also heavily relied on the expat community. A lot of guests, petrol people were around, and so the Americans, Australians as well, they were a lot of them, they were very supportive of our bars. A lot of them worked at the Twin Towers, oil and gas, right? And what happens is when they finish work at 5 or 6 o'clock, as you can imagine, KL is, okay, not as bad as Vietnam, but KL is also quite a traffic jammed up city, right? So they would walk from their Petronas Twin Towers to our bar, which takes about 15 minutes. But in KL weather, it is too hot, right? It's sweaty, rush hour, cars on the road, fumes, but they would walk and they would get their driver to come and pick them up from the bar, right? And when they arrive at the bar, they'll be all sweaty, but with a change of clothes in hand, right? So they get the bar, they order the beer, they go into the toilet, they change their shirt, they come back out, Alvin, let's do this. And then they would drink for a good 3 hours until 8 o'clock. I said, okay, we got to go to the family now. Then they go home. So they do that 3 or 4 times a week. So they were really helping us out throughout the whole time. But at that point, when we were trying to get the locals into it, I can tell you now that we had 5 nights of live band. Okay, 5 nights. Each night we would have to pay the band 800 to 1,000 ringgit. I don't know whether should I be telling this, but it doesn't matter. It's 9 years ago. So 800 to 1,000 ringgit for a band, because we had 5 different bands for 5 nights, right? Our sales for the day would have been 800 to 1,000 ringgit. So whatever, and that's our sales, right? That's not even our profit. So that's our sales. Whatever we collect in the till, we take it out and we give it to the singers, to the bands, and that was our night done. Next day, same thing, over and over and over and over again for 9 months, 10 months maybe. So that was how it was at the beginning.
Wow. And I mean, and what's the change you've seen amongst Malaysian drinkers? Now, that was several years ago. I mean, have Malaysian drinkers started to see the light in terms of the price benefit trade off between, Tiger and good beer?
I think there are some people out there who have realized the difference and are willing to do a trade-off of that manner, but there are still people who don't. They just want to go out with their friends and just drink as much as they can for a longer period of time throughout the night. I'm not saying that you cannot drink craft beer for a longer period of time, but it will cost you a fair bit more. Then again, if you don't really have to keep on sipping every 5 minutes like we are doing right now, then there's a longer way to prolong your pint throughout the night, right? And save some money that way. But changes, yes, definitely. There are more people who are starting to, the locals, they are starting to enjoy 3 good beers a night instead of 10 commercial beers a night. There are people who are doing that right now, and we know the Malaysian craft beer community. It's not huge, so everybody knows each other. What changed it? Maybe our beer festival that we did in the first year, 2011, just before we wanted to shut our doors, and we decided, let's try to do something different. We said, we had all these beers in our bar, and we needed to move it, and let's see what we can make out of a small beer festival at the bar. And that was when the Better Beer Festival was born in 2011, I think, the first year. Yeah, I think it's 2011.
And I mean, on the Better Beer Festival, I mean, you guys built that into something massive, right? I know by the last one, was it in 2016?
Yeah.
I mean, that was more than 1,000 people went, right? I mean, that was kind of like a...
20... Was it 2016?
Or was it 2017?
Yeah, one of those years.
And it got, and I mean, but that was kind of like a high watermark, right? Where you could actually see, I mean, there were thousands of people interested.
Yeah.
I mean,
4,000.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that was huge. And I mean, from, doing that, I guess you must have, was that really the first time by doing that, were you guys able to kind of build like a tent pole? Not, I mean, you know what I mean? Like you were able to kind of raise the flag for craft beer. I mean, did that help build the community a bit more?
I think yes and no at the same time, because the people that we saw there were not the usual 20 people at the bar that we see every week.
Was it people wanting to have fun, like explore something new?
Yeah, and it's by the way, there's this beer festival happening. So, and it doesn't happen a lot in Malaysia, right? So when there's a beer festival happening, everybody's going to go. Everybody's going to go because it's, let's be honest, it's one of the most accessible beverage in the country, in anywhere in the world, really, right? So nobody would refuse a beer. And so in Malaysia, if you have a beer fest, it was because of that. And we started in 2011, and then we slowly built it up to it was from 100 people to 200 people to 400 people. It just kept doubling every year until a point that we said, oh, we need to take it outdoors. And we did, or indoors, outdoors. And we did it, and then as we all know, the rest was history, real history.
Yeah, I mean, I know that that you guys had an issue with the licensing, obviously, and that was quite a big drama. And obviously, I think myself included, everyone was pretty frustrated about what happened. But not looking back too much, I mean, yeah. I guess since then, I mean, I guess it seems like you guys have gone onwards and upwards, right? You've opened, because since then, so obviously you've got now Penang, the branch in Penang. You've got the branch in Changkat. You've got the branch in Desapak City.
Yep.
And I think you guys had one. Was there one more?
We've got a Japanese
one, right?
Japanese one. A tiny bar in
Isetan, right?
Lot 10, yes.
Yeah.
Which is still going. We used to have 2 other sort of bars just serving beers. Tiny bar with like 4 or 5 seats in 2 of Ben's independent grocers. But we've pulled out of that as well. but now basically running just delivery and takeaway since MCO started.
Which is like the elephant in the room, right? How have you guys adjusted? Like, what have you, and then at the same time, I mean, without putting salt onto the wound, your beer, you guys had created the summer beer, the summer, what is it? Summer pale ale?
Summer. It's a summer ale.
Ale.
It's a summer ale, but we name it summer or summer. Together as they call it.
Yeah.
And then we did Life's a Peach Lager. We didn't come up with the name Life's a Peach first. We brewed a lager, and then the peach flavors came out from it, and then we called it Life's a Peach. I'll be honest every single step of the way today. And yeah, so I went to Melbourne last year to meet up with Temple Brewing Company. Spoke to the brewer there, the head brewer, spoke to the owners, told them what we needed, keep the pricing low, keep the flavors light and simple, but be able to tell the difference between a summer ale and a lager beer, and which they did properly. And I couldn't fly back there to do a taste test. I just trusted one of the guys there, Lee, who helped me out throughout that whole period. He was the one that tasted it. He said, "Oh, Alvin, it's tasting great." But in my house, thinking, he works for the brewery. Of course, he's going to say it tastes great. But which is, he wasn't lying. We just very, very good. We didn't know until it arrived here, and when we tasted it, he was like, "Oh, okay, everything is okay." But which I think we launched it in January or February. I can't even, maybe somewhere around there. And then MCO hit us hard. Of course, we have a lot of those beers. So if you guys watching need to order, just please do go to our Instagram bio, Tabs Rebel Instagram bio. The link is there. Order the summer ale, which is great for 3 days. The lager 5 days. Do that, please. Yeah. So we have a whole lot of beer that we brewed because we couldn't do small batches if you want to keep the price low. Well, I'm sure you are familiar with that. And so we had to do a big batch, and we're trying to move it now.
For your benefit, I just put the link, everyone.
There you go.
I actually put it in the Zoom chat. So thank you guys. By the way, thanks everyone for joining on Zoom. It's great to have you guys here. Any questions you have, I saw there was a couple of questions coming in, so keep them coming. We'll definitely go through the questions soon. So yeah, but Alvin, I guess on the MCO piece, right?
Yeah.
You guys have been doing some really interesting stuff to keep people engaged with your brand.
Okay, so I think it's quite obvious that we have no clue about the Instagrams and the Facebooks and the Instawebs or whatever you want to call it. But we have a small team behind us to help us. When I say small team, it's a guy who does the sales, who's doing the marketing a bit. The guy who's just doing the designing is also doing the marketing a bit. Our sales guys are helping out with some ideas of the marketing. But so when I say small, it's really everybody does a bit of everything. So it's a very close-knit team. And they are the younger ones. When I say younger, I mean younger, right? Because I'm 38. They are like 25. So that's a generation gap right there. Okay, so they know most about all this internet stuff, and never had I had an Instagram account until maybe, or been active on Instagram till maybe January this year or something, or maybe middle of end of last quarter of last year, whatever it was. If I don't know, I didn't check when I signed up for an account. It was probably way back when. Which when I started trying to understand Instagram, but I thought, too complicated, too much work. We're not going to think about it. But this year, had no choice, and that's how we got into it. Every week, 2 or 3 times a week now, we 2 or 3 times a week, we do different content throughout the week. From short content to longer content to music content. And we have played around with the combination in the last 6 weeks. This week is the first week that we have changed the combination to put one long music program of 45 minutes or an hour or so, and then another night of maybe a longer content, maybe half an hour, which we did last night with the cocktail bar. But then in between the Mondays to Fridays or whatever it is, we're going to have small, like 10-15 minute little programs on Instagram Live. This is our first week. It looks like it's getting a bit more traction. A bit more viewers every time we do it. So we're going to try and continue next week. It is a bit difficult to come up with new content every week. I'm sure you are also finding it hard to come up with content, but like challenges, collaborations with different bars, trying to get interviews with breweries, brewery tours. We did that the first week or so, but we realized there were more beer geeks that were joining instead of the mass. So we try now to balance it out between the beer geeks and the people who just wants to be entertained since they're stuck at home.
Yeah, no, and it's been awesome. I mean, I've got to say, great job on it, because I know you're right. It's so difficult to constantly create content. But yeah, I loved how you guys have been using Instagram Live with the live music, and obviously the cocktail making as well that you guys were doing with Coley, which is just got announced as one of the top 50 bars in Asia, which is a great achievement for a Malaysian bar. Very, very, very cool. Oh, but that's great.
3 bars actually in the top 50. Top 50, yeah. So there's Bar Trigona from Four Seasons. They're number 14 in Asia.
Ah, wow.
In 2 weeks' time, we'll do something with the main guy there, Ashish. So that's in 2 weeks' time. But next week, we're doing one with a Penang bar called Backdoor Bodega, a small one. But the 3 bars that made it in the top 50 was Bar Trigona at number 14 and Jungle Bird at 37, 36. It's a rum bar, one of the biggest rum collections in Asia as well. So they made it to 34, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if Joshua is watching. He'll probably kick me for not knowing. Jungle 37, there you go. We got Michael to tell us 37. And then
I saw that. Yeah. Thanks, Michael. Actually, Michael, he pointed out as well, it was 2017 that got shut down.
Yes, I saw that too.
2016 was still there. No, that's super cool. And I mean, I guess on the palette of Malaysian drinkers, right? I hear so many people saying different things. You know, everyone has their own theory around what Malaysians like to drink, what they don't like to drink. You would know better than anyone because obviously it's a labor of love and it's a passion, but you also need to balance the books, right? You need to sell the beer. I mean, what are the kind of top beer styles? You know, because some people say, oh, well, Malaysians just like to drink high ABV beers. You know, they look at just the cost, which I think it's the same everywhere. It's not just Malaysia, but from a beer style perspective, from a palate perspective, where is Malaysia at now in terms of the craft beer community and what they're drinking?
There are the IPA lovers, because IPA comes in a wider range of in terms of flavors, right? Because IPAs you get by some beer judging style is 6.2% to 7.5% or something like that, a standard IPA category. But you get breweries that are doing IPAs at 5%, 5.5%, 5.6%, which is a punk IPA, 5.8%, even 6% IPAs are still okay. So in terms of IPA styles, they actually have a wider range of people. I love IPA, but it could be from the lower end to the really bitter end, right? So IPA will always be a bigger range, the most requested one. But a lot of pale ales, and you'll be surprised, amber ales is one of the other styles that are starting to creep back a bit. We've been asked a lot, do you have an amber ale? Do you have an amber ale? What happened to Brewdog's 5 a.m. Sing, which they stopped brewing only on seasonal time and things like that. So I can't say there's a particular style, but I think like IPA is the one that they asked for. But again, the range from the least hoppiest IPA to the heaviest the hoppiest IPA, right? So it's hard to say whether they're really drinking a pale ale or an IPA. We do distribution, so we distribute all over. And what happens is we sort of have a data of what kind of drinkers in different areas, right? You have the light stuff, you have the heavy stuff. People who go to cocktail bars would prefer a stronger beer, like a 6.5%. But people who go to a restaurant or to a cafe would like a lighter beer, like a 4.5%, a pale ale, or probably a golden ale, which we don't have a lot of golden ales in Malaysia for some odd reason.
Why is that? Because I thought, I mean, I've always felt like Malaysia and Australia have some kind of like celestial connection, and that you would think that would be one of the first things that Australians would be exporting.
Yes, the golden ales, right? It's actually a really nice category, but for some reason, I think it doesn't sit well with the name. Maybe if they say, a summery ale, then it might work. But,
It sounds like, yeah. Does it sound like it's like a prosperity burger or a prosperity ale? Maybe people aren't sure what the golden's kind of. It's like it's a bullshit hype, trying to make it sound like it's better than it is.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, so I can't say for a fact that I can tell you Malaysians like to drink a certain kind of beer, but we did see a shift from the time when we started until now. Is that golden ales used to be highly sought after beer at the bar. Golden ales and lagers, craft lagers, right? They would walk into the bar and say, "Oh, I like a Heineken, a Tiger type style," and they would say, "Okay, we've got this, but why don't you try something different?" Oh, never mind, we'll take the craft lager. We'll take that lager first, and then yeah. But right now it's pale ales, IPAs, not sours yet. There are 5 or 6 people, but not many.
Five sour drinkers in an entire country of 30 million plus people. It's like, yeah, that's probably not your priority in terms of what you're importing right now, I guess.
But we do import quite a bit from Tuol, because we ourselves like to drink them. So so we did quite a big one, I think last year. I think.
But I mean, from again from the palate perspective and how it's evolved, it's super interesting because I think this isn't really what you're just saying. You can't find anywhere online. This is like fresh golden information. So, but from a perspective of food pairing, do you think that's something as well that's probably going to help craft beer accelerate in Malaysia? Like when people start saying, okay, let's pair a pale ale. I mean, I in Singapore, I went to a nasi lemak, a really atas nasi lemak restaurant. There's a very fancy one in Ansiang Hill, which is like in Chinatown. And they had all these craft beers to pair with nasi lemak. And it was good. Yeah, it was really good. But is that taking off yet? Or do you think that there's a little way to go for people to start getting into that in Malaysia?
I don't think beer and food pairing is going to be a big thing in Malaysia. Sorry for saying that. Some people might say, "Oh,
tell us why."
Because firstly, I think if you compare food flavors between, let's just take the American food, the Western food versus the Asian food, right? So Asian food is already so tasty on its own, right? It's so there's so many flavors and spices that you don't really need any of the flavors to accentuate when you drink the beer. Essentially, when you do a beer pairing, you want either the beer flavors to accentuate or the food flavors to come out a bit more. Together, it can go really bad, it can go okay. It wouldn't be great. It wouldn't be like eating cheese and wine. That would there'd be just a great sensation in your mouth. Beer and cheese, yes, there will also be a great sensation. But if we talk about Malaysian Asian food, I think it's very difficult because sometimes it's just there's too much going on with food in the terms of flavor of the food. Therefore, the beer just comes in and like just falls apart. And then try having a really spicy sambal and then drinking a beer.
It wipes your taste buds, right?
You still have the spiciness in your mouth, right? You're not gonna get the beer douses the heat a bit, but that's about it. So I feel that it's not the way forward, but there can be interesting combinations if they really work on it. Yeah.
And what's your take as well? I mean, on one thing I found really interesting is you seem to be very open to the cocktail scene and integrating the cocktail scene, which is something that you actually don't see that much around Asia. Seen a little bit more of that, I guess, in the West. I was really interested about that. I mean, do you see cocktails and beer as something that's kind of, there's like a crossover potential, or is it more like a partnership, or is it, how do cocktails and beer work together for Malaysian drinkers?
I think with the people that I know in the cocktail scene, for whoever that I know, and every time when I speak to them, they are very optimistic about craft beers in terms of their flavor profiles. So a lot of them like the idea of craft beer because of the flavor profile, much to the same effect as their cocktails, right? Because with the one gin, it's never the same with the second gin, right? So it's not like they look at gin. You have 50 different flavor profiles. Like beer, also so many different profiles. So with the cocktail community, they prefer to work together because of the, the 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 beer profiles that they can play with. Like last night, I never knew that you could use Jackhammer IPA, which I think is a 75 IBU beer, make it into a reduction with cinnamon and clove, takes away the bitterness from it, brings out the malty flavors that you would smell when you walk into a brewery. And then you put it into a rum cocktail with pineapple acidity and the lime acidity. Genius, right? So I thought that was really great. And that can be done anywhere with any beer, really. I got some friends who followed us last night and used stout to make instead of the Jackhammer IPA, and they had it at home and they said, "Wow, it's great." So that's a similarity between, I think, the cocktail people and the craft beer community, which you tend to see the craft beer drinkers going to these cocktail bars, and you see these cocktail drinkers going to these craft beer bars as well.
And I guess one positive part in KL, right, is I guess craft beer is still seen as pretty premium and atas, right? And I guess I imagine that's a negative a lot of the time because people think, oh man, it's going to be so expensive. Like whenever I go back to KL and I go to Farmers Bar taps, half my friends will go, dude, I cannot tahan this. And look, I know that's not your guys' issue, right? I mean, taxes, is Malaysia the second worst in the world for beer taxes? Or the worst?
No, I don't think it's the worst. I think it's up there, but I also think the problem is the strength of the currency.
Right.
Yeah, so that also plays a big part in terms of the pricing, the cost. Shipping beers to Malaysia, like with any other breweries, they would recommend us to use a reefer or refrigerated containers. That's also a cost to it. Texas, I think, is one of the highest. I wouldn't say in the world, but maybe definitely one of the highest in Asia. But I guess you've just got to work around it. You just got to make it happen. Because if everybody's going to be worried about the taxes, then there will be no alcohol in these parts of the world.
And I mean, and it is interesting, right? Because I think that some people who are listening, maybe who aren't in Malaysia, I mean, unfortunately, some of the things, I mean, I dearly love Malaysia, prefacing this, but Malaysia has had a bit of a bad rep, a little bit in some of the media in the last few years, without going too deeply into it. I'm sure people have seen it. I mean, I think one thing that surprises people is that it might surprise some people that there is actually a big craft beer scene or a growing craft beer scene in KL. Or not KL as well, I mean, around the whole country. I mean, is that, obviously we've talked about KL drinkers a lot. You guys have also opened in Penang, and I understand you also distribute beer as part of your import distribution business, probably outside of KL as well.
Yeah.
Is there an emerging scene in Penang and beyond KL and Selangor?
I think Penang, because there is a huge cocktail scene as well. So there's a slight demand for craft beer in Penang. Although in Penang, our bar is just a bottle shop. It's not really a bar. You could go in and have a couple of beers, but we shut like 10 o'clock at night. So we don't really open till late, but it's more of our home base of doing distribution. But we do have regular customers who come by the bar and pick up a few beers and have a few beers while they're there. I would say in all of Malaysia, we see Penang moving a bit more, a bit quicker than the rest. But that's not to say that the rest can never catch up. Malacca, there's a new craft beer bar that just opened Malacca, the first craft beer bar. So you need to Google that.
Seremban as well? Seremban is one, right?
Ipoh is not, I don't think Ipoh is more like restaurants and bars getting the craft beers in. Not really a specific one, not really a specific 100% craft beer bar.
And I mean, in Ipoh, Malacca, Negri Sembilan, is there a feeling that things are moving up? It sounds like it, right? Or it's slowly kind of growing.
I would think so. I'm from Malacca. I've got cousins living in Malacca, and a lot of them have not heard about the craft beer bar. And so I don't know how much is it growing in those states. But actually, as long as there's still people consuming craft beer, there will be a pickup sooner or later in terms of numbers. Because when whiskey first came around, single malts first came around, it was all your blended whiskeys and your Shivas and everything else, and everybody now nothing lesser than a single malt would be acceptable, right?
Yeah.
With wine as well, the same thing. So if those drinks can make it someday, and if they've already done, if they already made it, I think beer, there's an opportunity, but it will take a longer time than spirits, I feel.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, it's really positive to hear that things are growing, and it's not just in KL and beyond that. I mean, from a look, COVID, politics aside, I mean, do you think that, assuming that all this nonsense can get sorted out this year, by next year, are you optimistic about craft beer going to the next level, particularly in KL, or are you guys kind of where's your head at in terms of where the market size is going?
Actually, it's a bit hard to estimate because this is our first time going through a pandemic, I think.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Unless you've been through one before that none of us have been.
No.
But no, so we really don't know, right? Anything could happen. We don't know what the recovery is going to be like, or how long the recovery is going to take, or when will the recovery start. So everything else is really up in the air. We can't really say, oh, there's going to be a great. We thought this year was going to be great. Honestly, in January came, we thought yes, and then lockdown. All right, we wait for next year.
But I mean, in terms of I totally get it, and I think it's a difficult. I know, I totally understand. It's a challenging time. I mean, for you right now, I mean, besides on a higher note, and by the way, I've seen some great questions. I saw Craig and John have asked a couple of questions on Zoom. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I don't know. I was having a look at Facebook. Maybe we can go through a couple of them. Craig's from Singapore. And he was saying that he's been to Taps many times. It's fantastic. His favorite nights are the ones with live music. And I know, Alvin, you mentioned before how you started with live music. It's kind of a big part of your identity as a business. It's also it's a big investment for you. It's not just some wayang kulit puppeteers you're hiring from Kelantan. You're actually getting you're getting some.
But that'd be quite cool though.
That would be cool.
Wayang kulit with some rock band music. I think that would be quite cool.
Did you see the wayang kulit Star Wars? Someone did the whole Star Wars. They redid Star Wars. Yeah, I think so. I actually was in. If people have done some cool stuff, but Craig had said, how much of a success factor has that live music, or even just the whole live experience, which both offline and now online. How much of a factor has that played in your success?
Oh, first of all, I don't think my uncle is watching this because he is the guy behind the music. He would find the bands for us every night, or used to do it for us every night, right? Tonight is this band, tomorrow night is this other band. And to deal with bands are not the easiest things, right? You got to discuss with them a lot of things. And my uncle was handling all of that because he plays at the bar too, right? So his uncle Richard, he's the one that plays at the bar, and we didn't pay him for the first 6-7 years that was performing there. If we really count back to the amount of times that he played for us, we probably owe him about 150,000 ringgit, excluding the sound system that he would put in for us, right? So it's his hobby, so he does that for us. But recently we started paying him again, I think. I'm not sure. We used to buy used shirts for him during Christmas. So that was his payment. Yeah, 2 shirts at the end of the year, which he doesn't really wear. I don't know why. But now we started paying him again, and then guess what? COVID hit, so he doesn't get paid again. But
alamak.
Yes, alamak, it is. But yeah, so the live music actually plays a big part. That was what we wanted from the start. We always said that it was going to be acoustic music, something that we can talk over with a couple of friends. When the music is playing in the background, they're still playing. But as time went by, people needed to get excited. People needed to be more entertained. So we started getting more. Shouldn't say more aggressive bands, but more upbeat, up-tempo bands. playing full bands, but not big drum sets, real cut down drum sets to the cajon, which are those boxes that they heat. And then from there, I think if there is no music, I think it would have struggled a bit. But I think because of the music, it made people come for music and try different drinks, and then say, oh, you know what? I can sit down here and listen to live music for an hour and have 2 beers, and that's great. A pizza and 2 beers, I'm a happy man. I can go home now. So music was part, and also sometimes when people start drinking 1-2 beers and then the music comes in and then they stay on and drink more. If you see the chat on the site, I don't know whether this is Facebook or Zoom, Ken Hin from Ales and Lagers, he would come to the bar and heckle my uncle. Okay, my uncle doesn't play songs that only requires 4 chords, right? So he can never wrap his head around how all these songs are written with 4 chords in different progression. He needs 8-9 chords to a song, then he would understand. So, but Ken Hin would always come, sit by the bar. I was standing behind the bar, he would be sitting in front, and he would just shout, "Yellow, Coldplay, yellow, Coldplay, yellow, Coldplay." And I think that went on for like 6-7 months, 8 months. And then my uncle said, okay, we need to make things a bit younger. So he started learning all these really young songs at that time. I say that time, it's not really that old, but Coldplay, 4 chords to my uncle is like, how is this possible? All about the bass and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but now he can play all that. So Champagne Supernovas, the Oasis, what's that? All About the Bass, and then all these pop songs he could do as well. So I think he learned more things than anybody else did in this whole 9 years of operation.
So he's also making the use of MCO to polish up on his 4-chord, 3-chord tracks.
So like now at MCO, he performs on his end, right? So he's at home. He can play whatever he wants because we are not there to tell him, oh, we're going to change it up or whatever it is. So he can play his 9-chord songs now. Yeah.
I mean, one question on that before I move on to John's question, because John and Kenneth both had really interesting questions.
Okay.
But on the bar experience, and this is just not from anyone, so this is from me. I mean, you mentioned before about people coming in, they hang out a little longer if there's live music. Food's obviously a part of your experience. You guys actually have probably a more solid food selection than maybe people might expect. I've had food that's really nice. I mean, do you think that in-bar experience is also a really critical way of kind of getting people to level up on their beer knowledge? Like if someone goes in and spends 2-3 hours, they get pulled in by the music, they get pulled in by the food, maybe they try that extra beer, it kind of drives them deeper down that rabbit hole of craft beer?
I wouldn't, some of them do. It's a never-ending hole, that's for sure. A big hole in the pocket too. But there are people who just go there and say, oh, I like a pale ale, right? For whatever reason they like a pale ale. Maybe they've had it before somewhere else, or they just don't want something strong. They think they understand in their mind that pale is not as strong as an IPA. So let's just keep it at a pale ale. And just keeps on going in and say, can I have a pale ale? Any new pale ales? Oh, yeah, okay, I'll have that. But you wouldn't find them on Untapped. You wouldn't find them in your bar saying, oh, I really want to try that IPA or that barrel-aged stout or whatever it is. But those are the guys, I always want a pale ale, I always want a pale ale. So I wouldn't say that there are people who've gone deeper into craft beer world because of that. But there are people who have. Yeah. Those are the more difficult ones though, when they go into the craft beer world, because every time they want something different when they come to the bar. I know you guys watching, I know who you are.
Yeah, I'm one of those pains in the ass as well. I'm one of those people. Anything new? Anything new? What's fresh? What's fresh? Because it's an easy way of pissing off anyone.
Yeah, but no, all great.
All right, John had a really interesting question. And this is something that I think a lot of the Malaysian listeners, it's a painful question for those of us who are aware of the law. It's something it's more important for people to know and talk about, is that, John said, hey, Alvin, what's up? Do you see a local, by the way, John Wei is from Brewlander, an excellent brewery, Singaporean brewery. John's setting up a new facility in Singapore. He's been brewing in Cambodia as well, been very creative and important part of the craft beer scene in Singapore. So John's awesome. So John asked, Do you see a local Malaysia craft brewery anytime soon?
Before that, there's somebody on Facebook that Don Hurst said taps in SG is dope. Um, Don, the taps in SG is not the taps beer bar in Malaysia. That one is, I think, called Tap in Singapore, right? Yeah, Tap. Yeah, so we have got no outlets in Singapore. Okay, so John Way's question: will we ever see a local microbrewery? I Again, you'll never know what's going to happen in the future. But at this point in time, of like any point in the last 9 years, there was never going to be one, and there will never be one for as far as we know at the moment. It'd be great because having a local brewery will always bring up craft beer awareness in any country, in any city. If you look back, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago, in places like the Philippines, or even in Vietnam, I think craft beer was nowhere to be seen as well, right?
It was new, yeah.
Until a certain point where one or two breweries or microbreweries started opening up, and then suddenly people started understanding more because that's that local gap, right? So I always put it to this thing in my head that I always see. There's the microbrewery, there's the commercial breweries in Malaysia, beer price point at this point, and then you've got the imported beers where it used to be all the German stuff, right? Which is just known as German imported beers or expensive imported beers. There were no steps in between. Now craft beers come in, they are also at the point where the German beers are. So all the beers are now at that point imported, and then commercial pricing point is there. But there's nobody in the middle to come and say, hey guys, put your left foot in, try a craft beer, and see if you like it at this price point, which is just 3 steps up from the commercial brewery. And then if you're happy with what you had, then you start thinking, oh my God, how would other beers from other cities or other towns taste like? And then you say, oh, there is imported craft beer. I'll put another feet up and there's another step in, and let's go and see. I'll pay another three price points up and then see what it tastes like, right? But there is that gap. There is a step with any city that has a local microbrewery. But in Malaysia, it's just night and day, right? There's nothing in between. So to get people into the craft beer scene is a bit difficult because of that price point thing. But if there were ever to be a microbrewery, it would be great. It would be great for the city, for the country. Really.
And I mean, you don't think Napex, the third small brewery, do you think that's something they'll be looking into, or do you think for now that's unlikely for them that brewing license really to be used and channeled into a creative, Western modern style craft beer setup?
I don't know the people there, strangely enough, but I don't know what their plans are, or if they had any plans, they would have started doing something with it. But
yeah,
I have no clue what they're doing, so can't really say anything or what I think they are going to do.
I mean, one thing that Terence mentioned, and I know we're jumping over a couple of people's questions, but it's on the same subject. Terence said, Carlsberg is importing craft beer, and obviously Carlsberg, if anyone doesn't know, is making a huge amount of money right now in Malaysia. Craft beer, their annual report, which is publicly available on their website, have a look at the craft beer section and how much money they're making from right now. It's pretty insane in terms of the growth. But Alvin, I mean, for the big brewers, and I mean, it's something that we have to acknowledge, right? Obviously, Heineken and Carlsberg do drive beer activity. Obviously, they've done some, superficially pretty cool stuff during the MCO, like those campaigns around supporting local kopitiam, which means coffee shops, hawker centers. I mean, do you think there's any possibility of kind of an unholy alliance between Carlsberg, Heineken, and the craft beer scene, or do you think it's kind of for now, it's going to be somewhat separate worlds?
Anywhere in the world, is there a holy alliance?
Not really.
You just buy them over, don't they? So
yeah, you just buy it. Yeah.
I want you, you're mine now, you work for me. That's it. That's how it is. So I don't think there'll ever be a holy trinity, as some would call it, right? But there are no microbreweries to be bought over in Malaysia. So I don't think it's the same kind of kind of landscape that we're talking about here in Malaysia versus the other countries. Maybe John Way will get bought out one day, so we don't know. That will be his happiest day. He will walk out of the meeting room without his pants. I'm sure he'll be happy to give them his pants all at once.
$1 million check, John. I'm sure that would look mighty fine after all the effort you've put in. But there actually has been some. Look, to be fair to Heineken and Carlsberg, right? They have done some product innovation in the past, 5-6 years, right? Like Carlsberg Smooth Draft. Actually, to be completely upfront with everyone, I worked on some of the marketing when I was at an advertising agency in Malaysia. I was helping Carlsberg with some stuff around that. That was years ago, to be fair now. And I know Tiger's done Tiger White. And then they did another one recently, didn't they? Another new beer.
Tiger Crystal.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that's had any big impact? I mean, I know Smooth Draft, they seem to have rolled out in a few countries.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, it's in Vietnam, actually, funnily enough. Maybe it's their way of fighting back against craft beer. I'm not pretty sure. Because Carlsberg here is not super strong yet.
I think Smooth Draft has lasted longer than Tiger's Crystal. I don't know whether they're supposed to be in the same category or not. I'm not sure what their positioning is. But Tiger Crystal had a big push, I think, middle of last year. But I don't know where it stands right now, really. I had Tiger Crystal. I'll choose Tiger over Tiger Crystal any day.
Yeah, I know what you mean as well. Even with Carlsberg Smooth Draft. I mean, that being said, just for good measure, and I haven't got this in front of me, I just remember it, on ratebeer.com, one of the kind of untapped variants. I was having a look a couple of years ago at the ratings for Carlsberg's Malaysia version, and the dominant flavor descriptor was metallic on Carlsberg. I have a lot of love for Carlsberg. I did some marketing work for them, but that was unfortunately the review at the time.
So we do a bit of, we try to dabble a bit in Cicerone and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And what I sort of read about is that your tongue has got no metallic receptors, right? So when the people say beer tastes metallic, we're not sure where it comes from. It could be an aroma of metallic, because aroma is like 75% or whatever it is of your taste buds. So when some people say, oh, it tastes metallic, but there's no metallic receptors on the tongue. I might be wrong about this, but I've read about it. And so they said it could be a preconceived taste that they have in their head when they're drinking out of a can.
Right, totally. I mean, I guess that psychological thing as well. Sometimes you do think, God, where has this can been? It's been sitting in the back of the shop for kind of 12 months in the back of a 99 Speed Mart or a KK Mart.
No, it's quite fresh.
Yeah. No, and look, and in my defense as well, I mean, I've drunk a lot of Carlsberg Sendirian Berhard and Heineken Sendirian Berhard's beers over the years. So, if they're angry at me for my comments, I've paid them back more times over with the amount of beer I'm drunk with. There's at Sid's Pub and various other establishments around Kuala Lumpur. All right, we've got another few questions, which is great.
Okay.
This is awesome. By the way, guys, thanks everyone for tuning in. We're not ending yet. Don't worry. This has been, I think, the biggest session we've had Beer Asia Live. Yeah, and we've had more than 30 plus, I think 40 people in total have tuned in. Actually, 50 plus. Sorry. So that's awesome. So thanks for those of you who are still sticking around. Have a quick cheers if anyone is still around. Alvin, you're drinking the summer.
Yeah, I need to refill my beer. Life's a pitch. I need to refill. Maybe you do a quick 1-2 minute story about something.
I'll hype something up. So while Alvin's refilling, just so that everyone can be jealous of me, I'm drinking the delicious Goldwater Craft Lager from Pasteur Street, which is a really, really tasty lager here in Vietnam. Which is we're very lucky now that there's a big wave of new craft lagers. By the way, so thanks everyone for tuning in across both Facebook and Zoom. We're still continuing. Alvin's just refilling his beer actually, which is a really critical thing to do. Maybe if everyone could drop a comment into the chat on Facebook and Zoom. It'd be really interesting to hear where everyone's tuning in from. if you just drop a comment into the chat on Facebook or Zoom, I'd love to see where you're tuning in from. Even better, if you've got a beer in your hand, what you're drinking. Alvin, I was just asking everyone to just drop into the comments, into the chat, or into the Facebook Live comments, what they're drinking, where they are in the world. It'd be really cool to know where everyone is and what everyone's up to. Okay, we've got a few comments here. So we've got, let's have a look. We've got
Terence Tan. Do you know what is the closest thing to car scale? I got addicted to them when I was living in London. Car scale in Malaysia, a flat ale. Yeah, no, I think in this weather it's a bit hard to consume car ale or even store car sales. So this is my daughter. Yep. So it's a bit hard to consume car sales or even transport it to Malaysia. So it's very difficult to say that we have anything close to it. Sorry, Terence. I had a few car sales in Japan and in London. Some of it are great, most of it not. So.
Yeah, no. The one place I've had it twice, a few times that I can really remember recently. I'd had it in New Zealand. Once in New Zealand over Christmas, and it was terrible. It was terrible. I got so excited when I saw that craft tap. And Terence, I'm sorry to say, as Alvin was touching on before, I think cask ale outside of the UK is not always the best managed. I did have it in Japan, in Tokyo last year, and there's a chain of kind of real ale bars. I can't remember the name. It's got like an old English sounding name. They had really, really nice cask ale. I'll find it and look it up. It was right down in what's that really fashionable district in Tokyo?
Shibuya.
Shibuya. It was in Shibuya and Harajuku. And then I went to it. It was something. Yeah. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, that place in Harajuku, and there's a few of them around Tokyo. Really nice, really well maintained. And, the Japanese take it seriously. They take making fine craft beer, really, really seriously. By the way, thanks for tuning in for some of the comments. I saw Eugene's tuning in from the Philippines. Craig is drinking the Jing Young Master. Craig, I know you were saying before you were in Singapore. You're very lucky. You guys have got good Young Master deliveries there from Hong Kong. Neil is in Penang. Hey, Neil, great to see our Penang Kakilang on the call. Gamsia for joining. It's got a tiger. You better drop over to Alvin's Bottle Shop ASAFP to get some better stuff. Eugene's drinking San Miguel. Neil's on Cronenberg. Great. It's awesome to see you guys. Thanks for commenting.
Thanks, guys.
We have a really interesting question, Alvin. And Kenneth asked it, talking about East Malaysia, talking about Sarawak. Now, Sarawak is got some of the best, one of the coolest indigenous craft spirit cultures. And if you excuse me, I always get mixed up about the Harvest Festival names, whether it's Gawai or Ka'amatan. But there's a really beautiful tradition around drinking tua, which is this delicious. It's just rocket. It's like Malaysian tequila or Malaysian agave. But it's good. It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. If you have that, then you don't really need craft beer, really.
But that's his question, right? I mean, he's saying that they're actually Kenneth said, on a craft beer in Sarawak, he said even though the official data may not prove it, and I think you're more familiar than most, Alvin, is that one of the weaknesses of Malaysia generally is statistics tend to be really out of date or incorrect about all sorts of stuff, which has frustrated me endlessly in my professional life. But he was saying, he was saying there's a lot of people in outside, obviously, he was saying that Sarawakians drink a lot of beer, and which is, I know that for sure. I've got a lot of Sarawakian mates. And it's actually Kenneth is from the Island Dreams Bar in Miri in Sarawak. So Alvin, have you checked out the craft beer scene in Sarawak before?
Actually, I have not. Because of what we do here, everything as I said, our team is really small, right? So everybody's got something to do. Everybody's got a task or many tasks on a daily basis. And I've been wanting to go out over to Sabah and Sarawak for the last 2 or 3 years, but it's never presented opportunity to me to go. I get a lot of invitations from a lot of friends. Hey, you must, a lot of people who also want to distribute in Sarawak. Come on, come over. But and you know what? I was supposed to go in July this year. Let's see what happens. It started off in April, then it didn't happen. It's supposed to be in June, of course. Let's see. Even if you go there, there's nothing to be done at the moment. So I know there's some craft beers moving in there at the moment in Kuching and in KK, but nothing really big going on also. So we'll see.
Oh, Kenneth, as well, maybe you can share with us in the chat. I did see there was a Borneo brewing company or something. Or there was someone making beer of perhaps dubious legality from a custom perspective. Maybe you can share with us if that. I remember seeing there was was it in Sabah or Sarawak?
I've seen and I've heard from somebody else's phone. They showed me via their phone, but this was probably one drunken night in a bar somewhere, really in KL, in a bar somewhere in KL, and somebody showed me something on the phone. I say, "Oh wow, great," but I really no idea. I've seen it. I've seen the label somewhere. Somebody has taken the video and sent it to me as well.
Is it Cougar and Kuching? Cougar. There's one that says, there's one in they claim to be the craft beer of the beer of Kuching, which is interesting.
I think it sounds something like that. But I really have no idea. I should really catch up on what's happening in the local market, whether it's legit or not. But always good to know.
Kenneth actually responded. He said, "Yes, there is. It's probably not legal, so we can't quote the name." Unfortunately, Kenneth, I just did, so it's okay. I'm pretty sure custom Diraja Malaysia probably are not too focused on this call. So if anyone is interested, I won't say the name again. You can look at the chat; it's there. No, that's cool. But thanks, Kenneth, for your question. Obviously, it's great. It's great to. It's so cool to hear that craft beer is taking off in Sarawak. It's obvious that Sarawakians and Sapahans actually have a much richer alcohol tradition indigenously than West Malaysians. So I think that's
and I think they can drink a whole lot more per person than.
I have a very fond memory of a mid-20s birthday of mine with my Sarawakian friends drinking a bottle of tuak, and getting
I got
crazy.
2 brother-in-laws from Sarawak actually, and one of them actually does about 17 to 23 beers a day. I think his record was 25 whole gardens in an evening, in one evening. 25 whole gardens, and it's just nothing close to 2 I guess that's why.
Oh, that's crazy, man. That's that's intense. Yeah, no, there's kind of like a natural, what's the word for it? Like a natural buzz you get from tuak and other types of arak, right? Like langkau and like tuak, all the indigenous spirits. If anyone's in Singapore, by the way, you can actually get a lot of these spirits. In Malaysia, it's typically thrown in. I'm sure Alvin can attest and Kenneth can attest. It's brewed by someone's grandma or someone who, in the community. Then it's kind of distributed amongst friends, family. But actually in Singapore, you can actually get tuak. There was a bar, a cocktail bar that you could order indigenous. I think it was called Native.
Native, yes. Awesome bar, awesome cocktail bar.
And they recycle everything, right? Native, I think everything's sustainable. They have their own little garden.
Crazy.
Yeah, really cool.
VJ, his name, I think.
Yeah, he's doing.
Yes. Oh my God, I've been there. I've gone to his bar. I've seen what they do. They explain to me on a daily basis. They explain to me what they do on a daily basis to recycle stuff, and it's crazy. that is a labor of love, I tell you. That's passion right there.
And Michael made a point. Michael Chung. Hey, Michael, great to have you on. Michael's like an beverage journalist based out of Malaysia. Michael just
Very important.
Michael writes with the Star, I think, and his own blog and his own social media. So you should check him out.
Tipsy Turvy.
The Tipsy Turvy. He's on Facebook as well. Michael made a point, was saying that Native's in the top 10 of Asia's best bars. I think, Alvin, you corrected me before when I was saying I thought there was only a couple, and there's actually a lot more. So it's cool that Singapore, Malaysia, the Malayan scene is being honoured.
The best bar in Asia is from Singapore, Jigger and Pony.
Oh, really?
So, yes, great stuff. Indra and the team there are doing really good job. Jigger and Pony, man, if you have the time, anybody in Singapore, I'm sure everybody's been there because it is the best bar in Singapore, the best bar in Asia.
I tell you what as well, that the craft beer in Singapore scene has really gotten better and better. Like places like American Tap Room, Druggists, Tap, just got a big range. Free House.
American Tap Room.
Yeah, Jibiru, I love. And what's it called? Malt House. Malt House. Yeah. Jeremy's place over at East Coast. That's my secret hideaway. Whenever I used to go to Singapore for work before the lockdown every week. And I always go out to Malt House, early evening, work there, have a couple of beers, food. Speaking of Singaporeans, Craig, who's based out of Singapore, asked another question. He was saying that he's noticed in the past few years, TAPS has actually retained some core team members, and which is cool, right? Like having that classic refrain from Cheers, going to a bar where everyone knows your name is something that makes you feel really welcome. He was saying obviously the hospitality scene, in particular in Malaysia, I know that for a fact is really notorious for high turnover. How have you managed to keep how have you built your team and kept them loyal and kept them well trained? What's your secret sauce?
They actually live in the cold room. I keep them in the cold room.
Ice cold.
Yeah. We just keep them in the cold room. Keep them chilled. They last longer that way. No, but I like to think that because we treat them well, I like to think that we treat them well. But because I think they like what they're doing is something different, right? So something where if it makes them feel a bit more knowledgeable when they know more about something. I feel more knowledgeable when people start talking about beer versus politics or versus finance or share markets and all. So I think it's the same for them. And because once they started with us, they start learning about these beers, they also get excited a bit, they get more interested. We do get regular customers traveling the world and coming back with beers and sharing it with them instead of us. So they actually let some of they pour out a bottle and they pass it around with a few of the bar guys to let them try beers that they've never tried before. And that's how they actually learn a lot of their knowledge, not from me. They actually have a lot of conversation with a lot of tourists and they learn from the tourists. Yeah, so sometimes they tell me, Alvin, you need to get the beer from this place, that place. I was like, what? How? Yeah, that day I tried it. I said, huh? Really? You didn't keep some for me? Things like that. Some of my friends have traveled and came back and they, Alvin, I brought some beers for you. The guys at the bar asking, since Alvin is not around, can we have it? Actually, they already had it, but they're just asking for formality's sake, asking permission. But they already drank it all, because my friend would have opened it and shared it and say, since it's not here, everybody else gets to try it. So to keep these guys, I don't know, man. I love them because they without them, honestly, the bar wouldn't run as well as it can be. Sometimes I would go to the bar and stand at the back of the bar and they say, can you please go and just drink? Just go and drink and don't stand behind the bar and mess up our flow, our process, Yeah, so love them. They are doing a great job. I think the reason why they stay with us is because I think maybe we sort of treat them right. I would like to say better than the rest would have. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one weird. I think it's a weird part of a lot of F&B culture in Malaysia and Singapore. Unfortunately, has been not taking staff that seriously over the years, and it's something that I'm sure everyone on the call who's gone for a beer in Malaysia can attest to. Is just having this weird it's really not investing into people and not motivating people as well. And that's one really unfortunate part, I think, of the mentality of some food and beverage, restaurant and bar owners is not investing in people.
At some point, I would like to say also that sometimes it's not really up to the proprietors, right? Sometimes it's just human behaviors, right? Things that become out of our control. Like some football managers can't even manage their own football players, right? So up until the professional level of multi-million-dollar businesses, it's also very hard to control, I guess. At every level of any businesses, there will be a bit of a challenge in terms of keeping staff. If your staff likes to drink, if your staff likes the kind of work, great. Then they will stay with you as long as you treat them right.
Yeah, no, and I know you're right, and but look, I mean, I would say that to the original question. I mean, I have been impressed with the service in your guys' bars, and again, I mean, from a craft beer perspective, I mean, I've spent way too much time in too many bars over the last few years around the region, and it is cool having people who know their stuff. Terence had another question. So Terence was asking, does Taps carry less popular Japanese brands? He'd gone to the Kayaki Beer Festival in Tokyo. And he mentioned there are lots of Japanese beers right now. So Alvin, what's the uptake for Japanese beers?
Japanese beer sort of sells on its own because it's Japanese. But a lot of the Japanese microbreweries are not ready to export. The big ones are exporting. So Hitachino, we used to bring in Yona. We used to also bring in what's that brewery by the two ladies? I can't remember the name now. But a lot of great Japanese beers, no doubt about it. A lot of great Japanese beers. It's just the fact that it's sometimes hard to bring in so many brands and manage at the same time. One of the other breweries that we used to bring in was one of my favorites, Shiga Kogen. Again, can't be found anywhere else outside of Japan except for Singapore and Malaysia. They are up in the mountains. Shiga Kogen, the mountain's name is Shiga Kogen, is Shiga Heights. Took 3 years to convince them to send us some beers, and went for the beer festival, spoke to them a bit, and they said, okay, sure, but really, really expensive because they're such a small outfit, and brewing up in the mountains, it's going to be difficult to transport beer from the mountains down to the port, and then so it's yes, we would definitely like to bring in more Japanese beers, but not handling so many portfolios of so many brands and building it at the same time is very difficult. Yes, a lot of brands have come to us and say, can we do the distribution for them? But because they see the work we do with Brewdog, with the work with Hitachino, they see that, whoa, that's such a good coverage that you're getting out of these brands in Malaysia. But that's because we are strictly focused on them, right? And there's always some marketing help. But when you have 10, 20 breweries on your list, all you're doing is just putting out there for sale, but no real brand building. Yeah. So as soon as all these things come back into play, into normality or whatever they call it, maybe we can add a few breweries here and there. But at this point in time, we will keep what we have with the people we're working with. Some brands are coming in, making their way back in. Like Mikkeller is at the port now, or did I just let that out of the bag? Mikkeller has come back into Malaysia again. It's at the port waiting for clearance.
Awesome.
So I'm sure a lot of the beer kakis will love to hear that. And but then again, we're going to start building brands now instead of just bringing in unlimited amounts of brewery without any follow-up.
Yeah, no, and I think that was one of the last questions. But I wanted to kind of, by the way, if anyone has any more questions for Alvin, please put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A on Zoom, or post it as a comment. on our Facebook Live. One question I had on that, right, on the ranging, and the range, the whole, I guess the way you guys program your beer menu, and the way that you kind of forecast it and plan it out, is what you've done with summer, the summer ale, and then the Life's a Peach Lager. Is that something that you guys think that you're going to continue of, kind of have a portion of your own house beers, and then obviously, you're not going to stop importing, but do you think that's going to be something that you're going to grow out over time? Like you're going to offer more of your own beer, or is that going to be more like seasonal releases?
We're going to continue with what we're going to try and sell off all our kegs first. That will be the first priority right now. But of course, I think if this pandemic did not happen, we would have been at the brewery making the second batch of it again. Yeah, she's asking for dinner, I think. Yeah, so yes, we will definitely be trying to do something new again with Temple Brewing tomorrow, next year. Hopefully, after all these things have settled down. But to try and say that we will keep on doing it and keep on bringing it in, I wouldn't dare say that, because it's a very difficult process. It's a very, very difficult process. From the brewing, the cost is really high. It's a cost that you have to bond first before even selling the beer, before it being brewed, before it's being kegged. You already paid for it in some way, So that's a lot of other things that people don't see. People say, "Oh, bring more, make more," but it's not that simple. I got the easiest part of the job. I do the media stuff and I do the marketing stuff, but you have no idea what the team behind me is doing, man. I tell you, from the calculation of the finances of every square meter the ship has covered, how much do we have to pay, everything else. Yeah, so that is where it all falls down to dollars and cents, because at some point it's got to be stopped. It's got to stop being about passion, a bit of passion, but at the same time it's got to make a bit of sense.
Yeah, and I mean, on that, in the same note, Craig just asked a question. I mean, how hard is it to import craft beer into Malaysia? He was talking about compliance, culture. Is it simply just tax?
Yeah, it's how much you want to put in it, right? Basically, in terms of having to take out money to pay for the initial payment of a lot of the breweries are just going to say money first before you take a stock, and then the stock takes 6 weeks to get to Malaysia from wherever you're on average, 6 weeks. So your money is sitting. You've already paid. You're waiting for your beer to come in. Takes 6 weeks to come in. Takes 2 weeks to clear. That's 2 months down. Do you have 5 million in the bank just to pay the breweries first to bring in your beers and wait for 2 months? Then it'll be easy if you have 5 million in the bank. But if you don't have 5 million in the bank, then it's a whole different calculation. It's all about cash flow, I guess. Yes.
And I mean, from an importation perspective, I personally know from the conversations I've had with importers, trying to do my own stuff, it's an absolute nightmare. Do you think, is that, I mean, I guess you're saying you guys have a whole team just dedicated to dealing with compliance and legal stuff, right? It's that, I mean, basically it's that complicated, right? It's not just, as you said, it's not just the money. There's a whole realm of legal stuff you have to go through, requirements.
When I say a whole team, means it's the same people who are doing the other things. From the
but lots of their time, like it's not just about, like, it's not like importing into New Zealand or something like that, where you just, you pay a fee, it comes in. It's more complex, right? Yeah.
We have our finance person who does the customs thing, and everything else, HR as well and everything. So it's not really a whole team. It's just that the team members just being stretched really, really thin. Yeah. So, but importing it's in every business. There's always a challenge, right? Whether are you manufacturing something in Malaysia, whether are you cooking something in Malaysia, are you packaging something in Malaysia, you would have your own different sets of challenges. And craft beer, one of the challenges is the importation side, plus trying to make people buy it at a high price. So everybody's got the challenges. Everybody's just got to work with it and weather through it, and make sure that you come out alive and with more hair
Yeah, no, even doing some beer stuff on my own in the last 12 months, my hairline has receded tremendously. So I understand. Yeah, I had a thick head of it a year ago. It's rapidly depleting. So I understand the anxiety and the stress.
It's true.
No, but I think that's a great way to wrap up the conversation, because I think as you said, it's just about not looking. I think you and I, when we first chatted, I was talking about some of the challenges you'd face, and you said you were happy to talk about them, but you were saying you're someone who looks forward, and I really admire that, and I think that's something that I think you have to be like that working in the beer industry anywhere, even more so in a place like Malaysia, where maybe beer, the reality is, right. I mean, not no bullshit. It is more difficult for you than it is in a lot of other countries. For instance, even Singapore, Western countries. So yeah, look, but Alvin, I really appreciate the time you've taken today, and I think as well, obviously the fact that people have stuck on, we've still got a big audience actually still listening.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, we've actually got
Nice.
quite a few people. I think about 30 people still watching, which is great.
Nice, nice.
And so yeah, look, I think again, thank you for joining this Beer Asia live session. I think I appreciate your honesty as well. I think you've been really upfront and honest, which is super cool. I really admire that. And look, I guess from all of us, I think I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone on the chat. We hope the situation ends. There's insane
Everywhere in the world, man.
Yeah.
Even with the breweries that we talk to, because we import directly from the breweries, so we speak to them every week, different breweries every week, and they are no different. They if at all, they are also struggling a bit, and they have been very kind to us in some ways, helping us with some payments, delaying some payments for us. So great help from the breweries, very important for importers, and it also helps them, right, in some ways. So everybody is in this together. So from the top down, they've been helping, very helpful. The big guys are willing to help us. Sadly, some of the smaller breweries are more difficult because they are also constrained in certain ways, right? But the bigger guys, they have a bit more leeway, a bit more cash flow in some sense, to allow certain kind of repayments broken up into different months of the year.
Oh, that's great to hear, and look, it's awesome to hear that people are working together and not
very
racing to the bottom. But look, guys, the last appeal I'll make before everyone drops off. Alvin and his team have made a couple of awesome new beers, specifically crafted for the Malaysian market. And as Alvin was saying, it's not just about clearing the stock. I think you should really try and, if you're based in Kuala Lumpur or you know someone. One of the cool things, and I promise you this is, Alvin didn't pay me to say this, I just thought it was cool. Alvin, now you can get kind of growler bottles from
big bottles, really.
Big bottles with freshly tapped beer, right, from you guys. So I would really encourage you guys, if you are in KL, support or Penang, to support taps and really support the local craft beer industry, because as Alvin was saying, right now it is really challenging to keep things like cash flow going. So anything you can do, even ordering a couple of bottles of Summer Ray or Life's a Peach can go a long way. So yeah. But
Make
look,
sure
Alvin,
you
thanks
do,
again,
because
man.
it really takes like 40 minutes to get the beer from our bar to your house, unless you live in Klang or something. It takes longer, but it really takes like 40 minutes from the time you order, payment made, beers delivered. We got humans on the other end of the WhatsApp, so they can actually recommend beers for you. So do that. Our link is our Taps Beerbar's Instagram bio. Also, we do a lot of content throughout the week. So make sure you just join in, tune in. Next week, we've got a cocktail bar doing another collaboration. So all you need to prepare is a bunch of 5 drinks, 5 liqueurs and beers for next week's collaboration. We'll post it up on Instagram as well. Very easy. Everything can be done at home. On a Saturday night, join us, make some drinks between your craft beer and your liquor and your whiskey or whatever, and you have a cocktail. Easy stuff. So make sure you join us next week.
And I'll drop a link to the Taps Instagram. I put it into the Zoom chat, and I'll put one into the after this. I'll put it onto the live stream. I'll put that into the live stream comments as well. So Alvin, thanks again for joining. And team, thanks everyone who stuck around all this time. I think some of you guys, Michael and a few, Patrick, June, Craig, John, Kenneth, and all the rest of you guys, thank you so much for joining in. Mock as well. Mock, you're a
Thank
champion.
you, everybody.
Mock's another craft beer champion. Thanks, guys. And Alvin, best of luck in the coming weeks and months. I'm sure you guys will get beyond this once we things start settling down and getting more normal. And look, I hope everyone listening has a great rest of your Sunday. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you on the next Beer Asia Live.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ollie. Thank you for your time. Always free to do anything like this again in the future. So let me know.
Sounds good. And just so everyone knows, I'll drop that link to the TAPS Instagram channel in the comments on our Facebook Live after this,
awesome.
So you can so everyone can see it. All right.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alvin. And look, have a great rest of your day. And everyone, stay healthy, stay safe, and order from your local craft breweries and bars.
Sanitize those hands. All right. See you guys.
Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.